Hello everybody, happy Tuesday and welcome to episode 2 of Dinners Made Easy. I mentioned at the end of yesterday's video that I'm setting aside my daily theme so I can focus on putting together a resource that I think is going to be tremendously helpful and eliminate some of the decision fatigue and mental load surrounded around the question, what's for dinner? I spent several days putting together what I hope is a very simple, easy to follow meal planning guide. So this was step 1. Now step 2 is demonstrating and putting together the written recipes for each of the meals that is on this meal planner. Yesterday we made dinner out of the pasta category, which we made a traditional spinach and ricotta stuffed shells. Today's dinner comes from my American Classics category, and we picked chili this week, and for our side we're doing cornbread. Over the years I have tried a lot of different chili recipes. I've always been on the hunt for like the perfect chili recipe, and I'm sad to say I never really quite found exactly the chili I was looking for. I was looking for a kind of copycat steak and shake chili. That one's personally my favorite. I tried a lot of the recipes, the ones that call for like Coca-Cola and stuff like that in them. They never really tasted right to me. Finally, I just came to the conclusion that the best chili recipe is actually the most simple one you could possibly make. The only thing you need to make a good batch of chili is a handful of fairly simple and inexpensive ingredients and a little bit of patience. So here are the ingredients we're going to be using to make today's simple chili. We're starting with 1 pound of ground beef. As you can see, I got mine on clearance. I think I ended up paying less than $3 for this, but I will use a non-clearance price. Let's say that this is around $5. Then we have a single yellow onion. This will run you 60 to 80 cents. We have a can of tomato sauce. Again, this will be less than $1. I'll just say $1. A can of diced tomatoes, also usually less than $1. 2 cans of beans. I am doing red kidney beans and pinto beans, and these will usually run you about $1 a can as well. And then last but not least, a packet of chili seasoning, also usually less than $1. I actually got this for 33 cents at the grocery outlet. This is the Wolf chili seasoning, but any chili seasoning of your preference. So that is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, let's just say $11 to make this. And again, that is a high-end estimate. I am rounding up on all of the prices to the nearest dollar just to build in a cushion, because I would rather overestimate prices than underestimate them. So go ahead and grab yourself a large pot and let's get that heated up over medium-high heat. I'm gonna go in there with my ground beef. Now mine is still slightly, actually mostly frozen. It's thawed out just enough that I'm able to get it out of this tube, but it's a pretty solid chunk in there. If your beef is still frozen like mine, add in a splash of water, cover it up with a lid, and just let it steam for about 10 minutes or so, and that should help you to break it up. All right, been letting this just kind of steam for a little bit, and that should help break it up for the most part. Got our ground beef browned up for the most part. I'm gonna drain off that extra fat and water. In goes our drained beef. And I'm also gonna add in 1 diced onion. I'm gonna let the onion cook down with the beef. And optionally, but if you want a little bit of richness, you can add back in a couple spoonfuls of that beef fat. Most of that will kind of infuse into the onion. And I'm gonna let that onion cook down for about 3 minutes. Next, add your packet of chili seasoning. Give that a minute with the beef and onions so those flavors can meld. This is called blooming, and it's basically where we're using fat and heat to activate the chili powders and dehydrated spices just to give them a richer flavor. That only takes about 30 seconds to a minute, and then we're gonna dump in the rest of our ingredients. Our can of diced tomatoes in tomato juice, our can of tomato sauce, and our 2 cans of beans, and I am not gonna drain the beans. You can if you want to, but I'm using that bean liquid as like a starchy thickener for our chili. If you want to rinse and drain like your beans and your tomatoes to help reduce like the salt content, then you might just have to add a little extra water to get it to the right consistency. That is all of the ingredients in the pot. Let this come up to a gentle boil. That's exactly what we're looking for. A few small bubbles kind of coming to the top. Cover it up with a lid. Lower it to the lowest heat, just a really, really low simmer. And remember how I said one of our ingredients is patience or time. The best chili just needs a really long simmer time. It doesn't have to be a complicated recipe. It doesn't have to be complicated ingredients. Time is the best friend when it comes to a good chili. I'm gonna let this just kind of hang out and simmer on my stovetop for around 3 hours or so. There's really no end to the time as long as it doesn't burn, but I would say like a minimum of an hour up to 3 hours if you can manage it. The other thing is that this could potentially go in the slow cooker if you wanted to just brown the ground beef and then dump all the ingredients in the crock pot so that dinner is ready when you get home. That is totally an option. But I'll see you guys back in a few hours when we're ready to make our side dish. For our side dish, we are doing cornbread, and you really just can't beat a 75-cent box of Jiffy corn muffin mix. So we're doing our corn muffin mix, our 1 egg. I'm gonna add in a couple of little bonus inclusions, some shredded cheddar cheese and some diced jalapeno to make it a cheddar jalapeno cornbread. Is my bowl a little too small? Yes. We're gonna make it work. I'm just gonna mix it. This is one of my smaller baking dishes. I picked this one out because it looks kind of like the size of 6 muffins. If I were to cut it into slices, each one would be about the size of a muffin. That is my thought process. And I'm gonna spray it with some nonstick cooking spray. Pour in our cheddar jalapeno cornbread batter. Of course, if you're not a fan of spicy, you can just do a plain cheddar cornbread, or you can just do plain honey cornbread. It doesn't have to be cheddar or jalapeno. I'm just kind of adding some stuff in for fun. Cornbread goes in the oven. Oh, I guess I could leave that in as a blooper with some context that I had put bread in the oven to dry out and forgot that when I turned the oven on. I guess I can still potentially use this for French toast. It's definitely toast. I've also taken the lid off my chili at this point, just so that, you know, some of that water can evaporate off. It can thicken up just a little bit. Not a big deal. I just was thinking like it could use a little reduction. So took the lid off and I'm just kind of letting it simmer uncovered until dinner is ready. My little cornbread loaf decided to stick to the bottom of my baking dish, even though I greased it pretty well. It could have to do with the stuff that I added to it, like the cheese and everything. I'm gonna use a spatula. We're gonna repair it. There we go. While I get this plated up, I just wanna mention that like it is okay to use chili seasoning from a packet. It is okay to use corn muffin mix from a box. Those products are good consistently and affordable consistently. And that's more important than trying to cook everything from scratch and potentially wasting money on failed recipes. That's the position that I have been in before, and it's not fun. I've had my fair share of failed attempts at cooking from scratch at times when I really couldn't afford to order takeout if something went wrong. This series is meant to be about easy weeknight dinners. So I hope you guys can see the value in the recipes I'm going to be sharing over the next couple of weeks. All right, so that is basically our easy, I wouldn't say quick because it does kind of need like a bit of a slow simmer, but it is definitely an easy 7-ingredient chili. And it is consistently good, and that is the goal here. Add on the toppings of your choice. I'm going to do a little sprinkle of cheddar cheese and a little dollop of sour cream. And then we of course have our cheddar jalapeno cornbread. Add a little pat of butter on top of that. I like it a little sweet, little spicy, so I like to add a little drizzle of honey as well. So I know I did not try the stuffed shells on camera yesterday. I'm gonna remedy that today. Michael and I just sat down and ate dinner together and we both really loved it. He cleaned his plate. We had the leftovers for lunch today. It has been eaten and it does get a good review. Now we get to enjoy some chili. That is some good chili, and it definitely beats out some other chili recipes that I've tried that have cost me a lot more money to make than this one did. I think it really just goes to show that a recipe does not have to be complicated to be good. And don't forget to check the description box below for the free printable meal planner and the recipes that I have shared so far. I'm gonna enjoy my dinner, pack up my leftovers, and I will see you again tomorrow for episode 3. We're gonna be making a dish that I usually get at Mexican restaurants. It's called ACP, sometimes it's called arroz con pollo, and it's really cheesy chicken and rice. So if you're a big fan of cheesy chicken and rice from American Mexican restaurants, tomorrow will be a really fun episode for you. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I will see you again tomorrow.